The Raptors respect the cup. They clinch a spot in the quarterfinals. They also smack the Wizards to move to 11-5. Let's go to the film room.
The only thing that's originally filmed is that
Scottie.
And I've studied older films and tried to figure out how I got that impression. I was getting knees right in the cutting room.
The unique thing about film is an art form
exactly.
is the editing.
Sandro Mamukelashvili finished with a season-high 23 points tonight, working in multiple areas of the floor for the Toronto Raptors. Here in a spread pick and roll, knocks down the above the break three. He has been so good at spacing the floor for the Raptors so far this season. But what's so good about Mamu is that he works through the seams of the Raptors offense to facilitate offense without cannibalizing anybody else's opportunities. So here, staggered pin downs for Brandon Ingram, so Ingram can curl off here. And when that advantage dissipates and nothing happens, here he is, if you look at it, he's ushering to Jacobe Walter to go and set another flare screen for BI to pop out. Now, that doesn't happen. But what happens afterwards is BI ushers. If you see, he's pointing at Mamu to come and set this pick and roll, and so that they can run a pick and roll between Jamal Shed and Mamu, which has become a bread and butter play at this point for the Raptors bench. So what happens is they run this pick and roll, and it's a great job of understanding the coverage the Wizards are running with here. And he just slips this action, gets downhill. Good roll, good finish. That's Mamu for you. Now here the Raptors are working in delay. And delay usually means that your five-man, your big, is working in this area of the floor. He's going to work through multiple actions. He can either go this way and do a dribble handoff with Jacobe Walter. The likely scenario is Ochai Agbaji is coming here to set a pin down for RJ Barrett. RJ can curl off of this and run a dribble handoff with Mamu. We've seen it so many times. RJ catches it in this area, drives to the basket left, right? And I'm sorry for all the squiggly lines for the people watching, but I hope you understand where I'm trying to get at here. A lot of options for Mamu, especially in this area of the floor. But one option is also for him to take it himself. So RJ shorts this action. So instead of coming up to run a dribble handoff, he just goes through the pin down and is looking for the cut. Now that takes away an option for Mamu, who instead just decides to drive the ball himself. That is a great keeper play because now it is him trying to do a dribble handoff with Ochai Agbaji, who's coming up to grab this ball. But instead, keeper play, we've seen it from Jonas Valanciunas. We've seen it from other bigs the Raptors have had in the past. He just takes it. And because Mamu is so fluid, he can attack this basket and finish. Brandon Ingram with 2 steals and 1 block tonight. Great activity all throughout. He's been really impressive. But Mamu has also been excellent. And by excellent, I mean superb in transition. He has been one of the Raptors' best transition finishers to start this season. Here, he capitalizes. And I've really liked how he's using his length as a defender as well. I think he's honestly been way more impressive than I thought he would be on the defensive end. So here, he pinches in on this Keyshawn George drive and still recovers out using his hand to deflect this ball and force a turnover, then able to react, get out in transition. And again, the Statue of Liberty stuff that Mamu does is super impressive. He told us after the game that this has become a pattern of his. It's just easier for him to finish this way. And so, folks, welcome to the film room. Appreciate you guys as always. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Apologies that this is a little bit later than you guys usually anticipate. I was hoping to get this out a little bit earlier for you guys, but unfortunately I had it was one of my friend's birthday parties. Happy birthday to Jason. So I just went and paid him a visit, made sure that he was all good. Yeah, I doubt that Jason is watching this, by the way, but a happy birthday to Jason if he is watching this. Either way, that's why this was a little bit later than usual. This was a really fun game, but it was mostly fun because the Raptors have punched their ticket to the quarterfinals of the NBA Cup. Wow. What a turn of events from a 1-4 start to now being 11-5. And I tweeted this before, but This is basically their best start since their title defense season. So in the 2019-2020 season, they were 12-4, and this 11-5 start is their best start since then. So they're a very good basketball team. And I understand that they've played an easy schedule, but you got to take care of the business in front of you. You got to play the team and beat the team in front of you. And tonight it was, I believe, the 1-14 Washington Wizards, 1-13 Washington Wizards, 1-14 Washington Wizards. They also were missing their best player in Alex Sarr. They do have some interesting players. I honestly do like the way the Wizards are building in general with Keyshawn George and Trey Johnson, who I really liked in the draft. They are obviously at a different timeline in their life cycle as a team. And so this is a team the Raptors can take advantage of fully, especially when it comes to cut play. And they absolutely dominated. They absolutely dominated in this game. 140 points. They were awesome. They didn't even take that many threes. The Wizards took 13 more threes than they did, and they ended up making more threes than the Wizards did. It was a very, very easy offensive game for everybody. There were 4 guys who scored 20-plus points. Brandon Ingram dropped 24 points, did it smooth, calm, and collected. He also added 8 rebounds and 6 assists, along with those 3 stocks that I mentioned. Scottie Barnes, he also had 23 points, had a stretch there in that third quarter where the Raptors, by the way, dropped 48 points, a franchise record in the third quarter. Absolutely dominated the Wizards to start the second half. A lot of that was Scottie, who was knocking down his threes, who was getting downhill, who was being physical. He ended up with 23 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and 3 steals. RJ Barrett as well, his usual self, knocked down 2 threes, ended up with 24 points, got downhill. I really love how they're weaponizing RJ as a cutter. And I saw this on Twitter earlier today, but RJ is number 1 in the league at scoring points off of cuts to start this season. It matches the eye test. You can see that RJ is just really thriving as a cutter next to Scottie Barnes, next to Brandon Ingram, working off of their actions. We broke that down in the last game where the Raptors were operating with Scottie and BI in the pinch post area, and RJ was taking advantages as the weak side cutter. But I think the one guy I also want to talk about, on top of Mamu, who ended up with that season high, and I also wrote about Mamu, so if you'd like to go to the Raptors Republic website, you can read a more in-depth piece about what Mamu is doing. There's tons of good stats in there. There's a lot of good information, and I think I'm going to turn that into a video essay, so be on the lookout for that as well. But what Mamu does, more than anything, is that he facilitates offense for this Raptors team. And he does it in a way that is so unique as a role player because he doesn't cannibalize possessions. He's not a guy who needs usage. For context for Raptors fans, Norman Powell was a role player who needed usage, who needed touches, don't get me wrong, Norm, elite off ball, great on the catch and shoot stuff, but Norm, similar to Grady, needs actions run for him. He needs to come off of 2 staggered pin downs, catch it, make a decision that way, right? Mamu kind of can work within the seams of the offense and figure out what he needs to do on any given possession to impact the game. And that is what's so special about him as a role player. He can just kind of be a chameleon. And that's the part that's super elite about him. One time he can be the guy creating as the delay action. The other time he can be in a pick and roll to the basket. Other times he can pick and pop and space the floor, or he could just camp out in the corner and knock down shots and be a guy who can create gravity that way. There are so many different ways that you can use Mamu. And I was at the game tonight, and afterwards, Mamu actually talked about how the way Darko talks about his players, he doesn't necessarily talk about positions, because I believe one of the reporters said, as a big man, how does it feel being able to do these certain things? And he's like, we don't really talk about positions. They don't look at me as a big man. They just look at me as a basketball player. And I think that gives me so much more comfort to not have to focus on doing big man things, but just doing the right things on the floor. And that is true. That is absolutely what you see when you look at Mamu. he is just doing the right things on the floor. The other guy I wanted to talk about, Emanuel Quickley. Quickley ended up with 17 points, 7 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. He knocked down 3 threes as well. Quickley continues to be awesome. Over the last 6 games, now 7 games, Quickley is shooting 47% from 3. He was, at one point in this game, 24 for 49 from 3. He is lights out right now. He's unconscious from 3. And it's such a massive contrast, right, between the start of the season when he was shooting like 19%. And I remember I was here telling you guys that's going to change. If there's one thing that's going to change about Emanuel Quickley is that his shot will bounce back. But I do think that the fact that his shot is there now is actually opening up the other areas of the floor for him to work as a driver, for him to work to get to his floater. The playmaking has looked better. I actually watched him pre-game today for like 20 minutes, just work on reads. So what the practice was he would work in the pick and roll with some of the coaches, get to like the middle area of the floor, and then try to work a skip pass, or he would like dish it out to the strong side corner, or he would snake, settle for a floater. So he was working on how he was going to, 1, operate in the pick and roll, and 2, attack a closeout, make a quick decision. And he immediately applied that in this game. So let's talk about Quick and how great he was. This is what I mean by weaponizing his gravity as a shooter. And so as you can see, Quick is wide open here above the break, right? This is going to force Bilal Coulibaly, the guy who is closing out on Quick, to make a lot of tough decisions. He's probably going to have to fly by or close out really hard and make things tough. He actually does a pretty good closeout here. Bilal is a good defender. Either way, IQ attacks the basket, engages the help defense in Keyshawn George, and a nice dump off pass to Scottie, who finishes inside. Speaking of that ridiculous range, IQ has just been ludicrous in transition. So confident knocking down these shots. I really love this play. I thought this was the best play from the Raptors tonight. So they run a pick and roll with Scottie and IQ, and he doesn't have anything, so they flow into a pick and roll with BI and Jacobe. Jacobe doesn't have anything. IQ catches it above the break. Bad closeout by CJ McCollum. He pumps, attacks, kicks out to Scottie, who whips it right back. And now IQ is in the middle of the floor. He can make multiple decisions. 1, he can obviously float this up. 2, he can dump it off to Jacobe. Or 3, he can kick it out to RJ or to BI and get good offense that way. What happens is the defense kind of collapses into him, kicks it out to BI, and now BI can make multiple decisions, right? He can take it one-on-one. He can swing it out to RJ. He also has multiple options at his disposal. This time, he pumps, right? Gets downhill. A beautiful job by IQ to relocate from where he was here, popping out to the three-point line and getting himself a good look, making himself open and available for Brandon Ingram. And he knocks down this 3. That, my friends, is 1, beautiful basketball. 2, it encapsulates what this Raptors team is about, which is you have multiple decisions, you can make multiple reads, you have multiple players who can make multiple different reads and who are plus passers. Tonight, the Raptors had 36 assists on 48 shots. That is near the top of the league, and they are already at near the top of the league in terms of assist percentage. I believe before this game, they were 5th in assist percentage. They are so good and so unselfish that the fact that they are good playmakers individually gets enhanced because of how unselfish they play. That possession defined that. This time, pick and roll with Mamu. He just rejects the screen, understanding that Trey Johnson was really shading to fight over the screen, gets into the middle of the floor, and this is what I was talking about, making those progressive reads. This is exactly what he was working on pregame. This beautiful wraparound pass to RJ knocks down the 3. And his off-ball gravity is just as important. Here he runs off a pin down by Mamu, curls to the basket, and then settles in for a floater. Similar idea here. They run a empty side dribble handoff. So this gives IQ a couple options, right? He can either take the bigger Tristan Vucevic off the bounce and attack, or he can kind of create with the created opening, take a 3 from here, Or they can flow into a pick and roll, right? Yak can rescreen here, and they can flow into multiple actions. Either way, it's an empty side situation for IQ and Yak to cook. And instead, he gets the Wizards defense actually does a good job of recovering out. Regardless, IQ takes Kispert off the bounce. Nice move, settles into a floater. And so IQ is really starting to come into his own. Again, I think part of that is because there's less pressure for him to be, this like offensive hub offensively. He can score within the flow of the offense in terms of the 3-point shot. He can create a little bit when it's his turn to create and work in pick and rolls. And as we've talked about with the pillars of the Raptors offense, he is one of the pillars. He is one of the guys that they look to facilitate things for them. Tonight, he had 7 assists. He did a good job of doing that. One guy that I also want to talk about on top of that is Jacobe Walter. He had 3 steals tonight, but it felt like he had 100. His activity on the defensive end is very, very potent. He played 22 minutes off of the bench. He was a plus 20 tonight. Those 22 minutes was the most any bench player played tonight. Yes, I know it's the Wizards, and yeah, they played garbage time towards the end, and Jacobe was part of that garbage time lineup, et cetera, et cetera. But Jacobe was also the first sub off of the bench tonight. He was also the first sub off of the bench versus the Sixers. It's very clear, and shout out to Trey because Trey mentioned this in the Pull Up Trey podcast, but it's very clear that there's like a streamlined process for Jacobe to become a rotation player on this Raptors team. He is such a good defender, especially at the point of attack, and he does exactly what the Raptors want everybody on the team to do defensively. So he buys into the philosophy of what they need to do, but he also has the skill set to do it defensively. That it just makes sense for him to eventually get a lot of minutes on this team. The question mark always will be, can he knock down enough shots? Can he be enough of a scoring threat to keep himself on the floor? It's sort of the opposite question of Grady, right? I've always made this joke, but if you could like fusion dance those two guys together, and I think Grady is getting better defensively, but he had a good defensive game tonight too, but again, against the Wizards. Let's talk about Jacobe, these 3 threes, these 3 steals. A lot of them came off of activity, right? So on ball, being a guy who can swipe down, steal it, stonewall a guy at the point of attack. Another version of this is he gets beat off of the bounce, but he still uses his hands. He has great timing to be able to poke out the ball. He's also elite at these blind doubles. So when an offensive player has turned their back, he can immediately go and react and actually force a turnover for the team. Jacobe Walter can enhance the team's defense, really buys into what they want to do schematically on that end of the floor. And that's why he is very clearly going to be an important part of this Raptors team moving forward. I'm thinking about it's probably too early for this, but I'm thinking about playoff basketball, right? We just saw him in the Sixers game guard Tyrese Maxey. They might end up playing the Knicks in the playoffs. They play the Knicks in a couple weeks. We'll see how that looks. But you need a guy to guard Jalen Brunson, right? You need guys who can guard guards. And I think early on in the season, we saw how much the Raptors were struggling against guards. Shout out to Cole Anthony. Ryan Rollins did well against them. Like these other guards who can create off of the bounce really put pressure on the Raptors defense. And a guy who can stop that, a guy who can limit that is Jacobe Walter. So I'd expect more minutes for him. I asked Darko today about the pep talk that he gave Jacobe, and you can go and check out that on the Athletic NBA Daily Twitter page. Darko had a really, really great answer for that, but it seems like they entrust in him to be a huge cog for them on the defensive end, to be a massive playmaker, especially at the point of attack. And I think, especially given the fact that CMB is not available, CMB is also another guy who really adheres to that defensive scheme and can buy in and actually do the things that they ask him to. Again, there's 3 guys who can do it on the team. It's CMB, it's Scottie, and it's Jacobe. Those are the only 3 guys who can do it to the way that the Raptors want to do it. The ball pressure, the craziness. Jamal Shed can do it in stints, but because Jamal Shed is smaller, there are certain matchups that he just can't do that against. This was a fun game. The Raptors play the Nets on Sunday. They have a chance to add to their winning streak. The real fun, in my opinion, is Monday because they've beat the Cavs twice. Darius Garland is back. The Cavs are now almost at full strength. I want to see these two teams go at it. I think that is a great game. I think that probably is the game of the night on Monday. And the way the Raptors are playing right now, I really want to see those two teams go at it. That's going to be a fun game. So we'll be back on Sunday for the film room talking about the Nets game, but we will also be locked in on that Monday Cavs game. You need to be locked in on that Monday Cavs game because it's going to be a lot of fun. You also need to like, comment, subscribe, and do those things that you guys usually do because we really appreciate you guys. It's been an excellent start to this season so far. The Raptors are doing well. The channel is doing well, and we appreciate you guys supporting as always. So thank you very much for tuning in, and we will see you guys later. Peace.